never do these jobs until you're doing these jobs. And that's one of the quirks of politics, is that, you know, a day in last September, I went from being the Shadow Secretary of State for Digital Culture, Media and Sport to the Shadow Leader of the House. And yeah, I kind of knew a bit about how the House of Commons worked, but I was no expert, and I've become more.
When sacking your own backfires, Starmer's lucid Powell problem. Right then, before we dive into this absolute political car crash, if you're not already subscribed to UK Corners, what exactly are you waiting for? We're serving up the most unvarnished analysis of Westminster's weekly disasters, so hit that subscribe button and let's get properly stuck in. Sir Keir Starmer thought he was being clever with his latest reshuffle, didn't he? Out goes Lucid Powell, the scrappy Manchester Central MP who'd been getting a bit too comfortable asking awkward questions. Problem solved. Right? Wrong. Spectacularly, embarrassingly wrong. Because what our Prime Minister has managed to do is create his very own political Frankenstein's monster, and she's now coming for his deputy's job with the backing of 117 MPs and a very large axe to grind. Lucid Powell isn't just any ordinary backbencher seeking revenge. This is a woman described by her colleagues as formidable and scrappy, parliamentary code for someone who knows where all the bodies are buried and isn't afraid to start digging. She spent years building networks across the Labour Party, from her days as Ed Miliband's aide to her recent stint as Commons leader. And now, thanks to Starmer's ham-fisted people management, she's channeling all that institutional knowledge into what's effectively become a referendum on his leadership. The deputy leadership contest between Powell and Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson isn't really about who gets to stand next to Starmer at Prime Minister's questions. It's about whether Labour MPs have had quite enough of the groupthink culture that Powell says has infected Downing Street. When a politician starts talking about groupthink and lack of receptiveness to differing views, that's not policy criticism, that's a direct challenge to how power is being exercised at the very top. Here's where it gets properly delicious. Powell didn't just get the boot. She got the most insulting version of the boot possible. Sky News reports she asked Starmer 3 times why she was being sacked and received precisely 0 answers. 3 times. Imagine the sheer brass neck of that, demanding an explanation from your boss for your dismissal and being met with a political equivalent of radio silence. It's the kind of treatment that transforms disappointed MPs into vengeful ones. But it gets worse for Starmer. The reshuffle wasn't just poorly communicated, it was insultingly delegated. Ministers who expected a personal call from the Prime Minister instead got their marching orders through intermediaries. Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary, and Jonathan Reynolds, who was himself demoted to Chief Whip, were left to deliver the bad news. It's like being dumped by text message, but in politics, and the person dumping you can't even be bothered to send a text themselves. One sacked minister told Sky News it was inept people management that is going to come back to bite him. And they're absolutely right, because this isn't just about hurt feelings, it's about political survival. When you treat your MPs like disposable commodities, they tend to remember that treatment when opportunities for payback arise. Powell's deputy leadership campaign isn't just a contest, it's a vessel for every grievance, every slight, every moment of poor judgment that's accumulated in Downing Street. The parallels with previous Labour disasters are impossible to ignore. Remember the Gaza rebellion when Labour was in opposition? That happened because leadership tried to shut down internal debate rather than manage it. Remember the welfare cuts uproar that required Angela Rayner's intervention? Same pattern. Attempt to impose from the top, face rebellion from below, scramble to contain the damage. Starmer seems pathologically incapable of learning from these mistakes. Carl Turner, the Hull East MP, has crystallized what this contest really means. His backing Powell precisely because she's not being the choice of Downing Street. A damning indictment of how toxic association with Number 10 has become within the Parliamentary Labour Party. When being the establishment candidate is an active disadvantage in your own party's internal election, you've got serious problems. Turner's language is particularly telling. He describes Powell as a potential shop steward for the PLP, someone who will speak truth to power without fear or favour. That's not the language of factional politics. That's the language of institutional rebellion. The Parliamentary Labour Party sees itself as needing protection from its own leadership, which is a remarkable state of affairs for a party that's been in government for barely a year. The Andy Burnham dimension adds another layer of pure political theatre to this mess. Powell's sacking hasn't just energized backbench MPs. It's given the biggest boost imaginable to the Greater Manchester mayor who's been circling Starmer's premiership like a particularly patient vulture. Burnham, Powell's close friend and long-rumoured leadership challenger, suddenly finds himself in a position where a Manchester by-election could provide the perfect platform for a Westminster comeback. Think about the impossible position this creates for number 10. Allow Burnham to run in a potential by-election, and you're essentially facilitating a leadership challenge from someone who's been openly critical of your approach. Block him from a ballot, and you risk gifting the seat to Reform while causing an absolute uproar among MPs who are already questioning your judgment. It's a masterclass in political chess, and Starmer appears to have been outmaneuvered before he even realized the game had begun. The most damaging aspect of this entire affair isn't the immediate political cost. It's what it reveals about Starmer's instincts as a leader. This is a man who survived the toxicity of the Corbyn years, who rebuilt Labour's electoral credibility, who delivered the party's first election victory in nearly 2 decades. Yet has managed to create an internal crisis through nothing more sophisticated than poor communication and worse judgment. One union source captured the essence of Powell's opportunity perfectly. If Lucy can run this as a referendum on the direction of the government, she'd win. That's not speculation. That's recognition of how thoroughly Starmer has misread the mood of his own party. Powell doesn't need to win this contest to inflict serious damage. She just needs to force a conversation about leadership style, decision-making processes, and respect for parliamentary colleagues that Starmer clearly doesn't want to have. The truly maddening thing about this situation is how entirely avoidable it was. A simple phone call explaining the reshuffle decisions, a moment of basic courtesy, an acknowledgement that experienced MPs deserve more than being ghosted by their own Prime Minister. Any of these gestures could have prevented this mess. Instead, Starmer's chosen to govern through a combination of aloofness and assumption that has transformed routine personnel changes into existential political threats. This is what happens when you mistake winning an election for mastering politics. Starmer delivered Labour to power, but is proving remarkably inept at wielding that power in ways that maintain party unity. The lucid Powell problem isn't really about lucid Powell at all. It's about a Prime Minister who's created the conditions for his own MPs to view challenging his authority as not just acceptable, but necessary. So there you have it. How to transform a routine reshuffle into a full-blown internal rebellion through nothing more than spectacular misjudgment and institutional arrogance. Starmer wanted to remove a troublesome questioner and instead created a formidable opponent with a platform, a grievance, and 117 MPs worth of support. If this is what passes for political management in Downing Street, we're going to have plenty more content for this channel. Make sure you're subscribed because British politics just got a whole lot more interesting, and we'll be here to dissect every magnificent disaster